And in general, it would just take a really long time for the promised effects to ending humanity. And that's not even mentioning how I didn't say that right. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. Sometimes, when a giant space octopus comes down and starts messing with your planet's water, it really makes you do a morality check and test exactly what you're willing to do. What the heck am I talking about? Well, let's find out by taking a look at the 6th episode of TTAF, 3 Cheats to the Wind. Emperor Gorganis has got a brilliant plan this time. One so brilliant, he wasn't even planning on telling anybody about it. When Lechner asks him to please share, Gorganis says he does not share his plans. He tells them.
Excuse me, did you just say?
Anyway, this amazingly brilliant plan is to use the Octodroid monster to turn Earth's fresh water into salt water. So I did a little bit of research, and desalination, the process of removing salt from salt water, has been observed as far back as ancient Greece. The process had already been extensively researched and practiced by 1994. It would be more than inconvenient, sure, there'd likely be significant loss of life, but this is not a world-ending plan, Gorgie, my boy. At the cafe, the Sentinels are hanging out with each other, yes, in public. I'm okay with this. As I said before, the team is slowly growing to become friends, which is nice to observe happen over time. There's a line for drinks from the cafe, so Drew basically takes everybody's order at once, but then goes right back to writing a paper for school. The others are very surprised to see Drew, normally very aloof and kind of above school, so focused on an assignment. But A, this paper is 60% of her English class grade, which seems a little bit excessive even for a final project, and B, she actually likes this topic. The topic of her paper is heroism in French literature, and she is writing about Les Miserables, the story of innocent fugitive Jean Valjean. Gordon hears innocent fugitive and thinks that this story is ripping off The Fugitive, until Swinton very gently points out that it's actually the other way around. We see a sequence of Octodroids setting to work on salinating all of the Earth's fresh water by setting fire to trees? Seriously, this feels like an entirely different, if somewhat similar plan. Getting rid of all of the Earth's trees so the planet wouldn't have any oxygen anymore. It often feels like the producers of this show just shot a bunch of general monster footage and then had to rush to piece it into the individual episodes while sort of forgetting what the plots of those episodes actually were. In this show's classic method of the heroes very slowly realizing that something's going on, Gordon tells Drew that his coffee tastes salty, and Swinton agrees. You know, there are certain types of coffee that actually have salt in them intentionally. Salted caramel comes to mind. Drew could actually care less. Her shift is over now, and she has to get to work on her paper, saying she only has until 4th period to get it done. Is Drew working a cafe shift during school hours? Anyway, the Sentinels' tattoos flash, and they don't actually mention this until we see them leave, but the portal is in the back room of the cafe. Laurie says they're going to need a diversion, so Gordon suddenly raises his voice and says, "This coffee is terrible!" Everyone in the cafe suddenly realizes that, yes, this coffee is terrible, and the 4 of them leave. This made me literally LOL, but after the 4 leave, there's a shot still in the cafe of everyone basically shrugging their shoulders and going back to what they were doing. The Sentinels arrive in the cave, and Nimbar explains what's going on, and you know what? Credit where credit is due, they did really try to explain the thinking process here. Now, I feel like they filmed this monster footage for one idea and then kind of changed tracks in writing and had to explain why the monster that's salinating the water is setting trees on fire. Nimbar says if all the fresh water on Earth is salinated, then all of the plant life will die. And as I was saying, without plant life on Earth, there's no oxygen, and then all the rest of the life will die. That's an incredibly roundabout plan and seems to ignore the fact that life on Earth requires fresh water itself in order to survive, but what are you going to do? Drew's in a hurry to get things done and get back to her paper, so she steps onto the transodisc with her paper. As the Sentinels arrive, Octodroid is salinizing more water by spinning around in circles. When the Sentinels arrive, Centaur is still holding her paper. So I guess objects the Sentinels are holding when they transform really do grow with them. Just, wow. Wow. The Sentinels fight the monster by blasting it, and they're doing well. But when Centaur goes to blast the monster, she realizes she's holding her essay and thus can't summon her weapon. The monster grabs her with a tentacle, but Taurus kicks it away. It goes to grab her again, but grabs her paper instead, and apparently eats it. We don't see this on screen, but the paper is destroyed. Anyways, the Sentinels blast the monster until Gorganis pulls it back. The Sentinels return to Nimbar's cave, happy about their victory, except for Drew, who is clearly upset that her paper was destroyed. We get to see the acting chops of Kjell Sorgen again here, as Drew's emotion is just very clearly conveyed, and you really feel for her. She has very little time to get this paper done, and now she has to start from scratch, and she feels like she's doomed. However, back at the school, Drew is looking pretty happy, and Lori asks her how she was able to get away with not turning in a paper. She says it was easy. She just didn't mention it. You see, this teacher apparently takes a long time to grade things, so it should take her a while to realize that Drew hasn't turned in a paper. When the teacher checks with Drew, Drew will say, of course she handed in a paper. It must have just gotten lost in the shuffle. But of course, Drew will be more than happy to give the teacher this backup copy of the paper that she just so happens to have. This plan sure does beat an excuse note from Nimbar. That is, as long as the teacher didn't check right then and there to make sure that she had a paper from every student, which she did, and then came to find Drew in the hallway to ask about the paper. The teacher is actually kind of generous about this. When Drew is forced to admit that she has nothing to turn in, the teacher gives her 24 hours with no penalty. 24 hours and 1 minute, however, and Drew fails the assignment. And the class, because of the whole 60% thing, and that would mean she would have to repeat the class next year. And for anyone thinking that Drew should just be able to pop back home and print off another copy of her essay, it seems that Drew doesn't have a computer. Remember, she was handwriting this essay. To this point, heroes, this episode had been kind of silly, goofy fun, but this is where it gets really good. At Drew's house, she's trying to rewrite her essay, but her frustration over the situation has her mentally blocked. The others show up feeling bad that they might have been able to prevent this if they had defeated the monster a little bit faster. Of course, this also could have been prevented by Drew just leaving the essay in the cave, but anyway, Swinton made a copy of Les Mis from his parents' CD collection, and the four of them plan to listen to it and brainstorm. However, Gordon has a different idea, and while at first Drew doesn't want to hear it, she decides that she's desperate and gives it a listen. You see, Gordon says that school is a business. Their parents pay for their kids' grades with their tax dollars, so they should be satisfied with the grades they're getting. Gordon reveals that he has access to a mail-order essay catalog. They take cards, overnight delivery, guaranteed B+, and they just so happen to have a section dedicated to the works of Victor Hugo. Swinton and Lori don't think that Drew would do such a thing, since it's cheating, but Drew accepts. 1, she's desperate, but 2, she did the work. Sort of. She says she finished the essay, but you might remember when she was leaving the cafe, she said she still needed to finish it, and that's when they were called into battle. Anyway, she doesn't feel like it's fair for her to fail because she was saving the universe. She takes Gordon's phone and calls the company. Gorganis apparently decided that his last plan was pretty lame, or at least kind of confused, as he's come up with something way better. He declares that humans are 98% water, which actually isn't true. Humans are about 60% water, but anyway, he's given Octodroid a desiccation ray that can suck the water out of objects. He is going to send Octodroid to attack a nuclear power plant. For those of you who are unaware, water is used in the generation of nuclear power to cool things down. Remove the water from a nuclear power plant and you're going to have a meltdown. And when the Sentinels arrive to stop Octodroid, he'll suck the water out of them, killing them. This is actually kind of dark and very evil genius. At the cafe, Gordon is attracting new customers to the mail-order essay business, and the other Sentinels can't believe that Drew is still going through with this. Lori especially says that she can't believe that Drew, of all people, would actually stoop to something like this. And that doesn't make any sense. Earlier in the episode, they specifically established that Drew cares the least about school grades among the four of them. If she has to cheat to advance through a school system that the state is forcing her to make her way through, why would she care? Swinton expresses his own surprise and disappointment in Drew, and we get a further glimpse into Drew's motivations for doing this. She says that A's come easily to Swinton. She hardly ever gets them, but she truly believed that she was going to get an A for this paper. It was taken away from her unfairly, her own stupidity at bringing the paper with her into battle notwithstanding, so she feels like she deserves this. This actually hits rather close to home for me, not from Drew's point of view, but from Swinton's. As a rather geeky, nerdy guy, I know, stifle your shock, I had friends at school who would ask me how school came so easily to me, how I seemed to know all the answers and never struggled with tests or homework or things like that. While my only answer at the time was paying attention in class and studying, I realize now that school just comes easily to some people rather than others. I absolutely get that Drew would be incredibly frustrated by this situation. Their tattoos flash and they run through a portal right in the middle of the cafe, since apparently everyone just got up and left. Good timing, I guess. The manager steps out of the back with clearly what's Drew's ordered essay, but she's gone. Nimbar on a platter, this show can be a roller coaster. The Sentinels arrive at the cave and Nimbar explains that Octodroid is back. Octodroid? Drew says. But I thought we stopped him yesterday. He beamed away and you saw that
Language!
Anyway, at least they're not pretending that they fought him before. Nimbar explains what's happening and yeah, that's bad news, so they take off. This fight scene is pretty average, to be honest. Sometimes it feels like the fight choreography is intentionally parodic of Power Rangers, with a whole bunch of jumping and flipping around that doesn't lead to anything but poses. Eventually, Octodroid starts sucking the water out of the Sentinels. Centaur realizes that their best move is to form Nitron. And even though it's not mentioned, there is something of a logic to that. With the Sentinels losing water from each of their bodies, forming one body allows them to combine their water and they should be able to survive. Of course, that does mean that Nitron normally operates with 4 times as much water, but this is cheesy science fiction we're talking about. They do so, and at first, it actually doesn't help, as Octodroid manages to grab the Knight and just pulls water out of it. But then Nitron breaks free, and Lechner and Gorganis declare the mission a failure. Jumping the gun just a little bit, don't you think? Nitron just broke free, it hasn't won yet. Nitron resummons his sword and shield and blasts the monster until it's teleported away. The Sentinels return to the cafe, and the manager is actually in the room cleaning tables, just facing the other direction. The Sentinels quietly return to their seats behind her, which begs the question of why the manager didn't hear the portal when there is an audible sound effect. I mean, put some headphones on her or something. And then the Sentinels start discussing the battle out loud. I mean, not in specifics, they just basically congratulate Drew for her heroics. Anyway, after the Sentinels make an excuse to the manager about having stepped out to see a parade of street mimes, the manager gives Drew the essay. However, Drew has had a change of heart. She tells Lori that she's right. Drew is a hero, and this is not how heroes act. To Gordon's shock, she tears up the essay. Gordon says she paid good money for that and asks her why she did it. She starts giving a speech about being a hero and comes to realize that she is quoting her essay word for word. She couldn't remember a single word of it before, but now she can remember the whole thing exactly as she wrote it. The show kind of gives us a Preston's Magic explanation for this, with Swinton explaining that Nimbar had told the team off-screen that portal travel can have side effects, such as, in this case, enhanced memory. However, Lori points out that that off-screen explanation also said that those side effects are temporary, so Drew starts dictating the essay to Swinton, who begins typing it up on his laptop that she really should have just borrowed in the first place. Teach the ignorant as much as you can. Society is culpable in not providing a free education for all, and it must answer for the night which it produces. If the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but he who causes the darkness. Well then, let's read the signs, shall we? Episode 6, 3 Cheats to the Wind. Pros, another complex morality play, the evil second plan, and growing closeness and conflict. Cons, kind of boring fights, the less evil first plan, and a lack of attention to detail. I really enjoyed this one, even more than I was expecting to. 3 Cheats to the Wind gets 4 signs out of 5. This show really continues to surprise me in terms of the topics it addresses and the depth and complexity at which it addresses them. It just really caught me off guard this time because it hits right after the back-to-back silliness of Octodroid doing twirlies and Centaur showing up holding a giant legal pad. It's really just the complexity of the whole thing, how it's not so simple and boiled down. Gordon isn't just presented as some shady back alley paper dealer, he's another one of the show's heroes. He has a legitimate case for why this is acceptable to his moral code. It does sort of conflict with his follow the rules at all costs mentality, but again, it does fit within his general understanding and character. Drew goes through a very enjoyable arc in this episode where at first she's frustrated at what having to be a hero is costing her, but by the end, she's realized that it's being a hero that prevents her from taking the easy way out based on her own morality. It's a moral lesson that tied the two plots together and demonstrated the conflicts of being a student and a superhero. Hey, Power Rangers, if you insist on having seasons where the Rangers are in school, do stories like this one. Gorganis' second plan is really chilling in a way the show doesn't implicitly lay out, but it doesn't take too much to put together. If Octodroid causes a nuclear meltdown outside of Beverly Hills, thousands of people are going to die. If Octodroid finishes using the desiccation ray on the Sentinels, they were going to die. It's just a very dark plan that really kind of ups Gorganis' standing as an evil mastermind. And I addressed earlier how the Sentinels were just hanging out at the cafe, and that's a little weird based on their rules about hanging out and stuff, but I was okay with that because it demonstrates how the team is growing closer. This episode actually addresses that whole thing very well, as the team are becoming closer friends, but still have major personality conflicts and differences. They care about each other, but absolutely see the world differently and clash over that. It's just very organic character development. There was a point in watching this episode where I realized that it had given us a very quick monster fight, and then we were right back to a long stretch on the human side of the plot. Yeah, and in general, this episode was kind of light on action. The fights were kind of boring, and while I enjoyed Drew's realization about the meaning of heroics, It was a very general lesson that didn't really reflect back to the monster side of the plot in any specific way. I was half expecting something like, I realized that Octodroid trying to steal our water was cheating, and cheating is wrong. I praised Gorganis' second plan, which means that his first plan was rather lacking. I mean, it was a good idea, but like I said, humanity has been working on taking the salt out of salt water since forever, and in general, it just would have taken a really long time for the promised effects to actually end humanity. And that's not even mentioning how Octodroid was apparently taking the fresh water and making it salt water by setting fire to trees.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
And while, yes, we didn't get any, oh no, Octodroid's back, Drew thinking that they had destroyed the monster when it had clearly just teleported away, demonstrates just the lack of attention to detail that you see from this show sometimes. The whole setting fire to trees thing is another, even if they did try to explain it. This show sometimes really just feels like they had to throw episodes together with whatever they had. And yes, the same is true of Power Rangers oftentimes, but Power Rangers is a show that's adapting footage from a different show. This show is not. But once again, another surprising episode that actually makes you think and examine what your moral standards are. If you're gonna have a moral of the day type story, do it like this, where the heroes can disagree with each other on it, even at the end of the episode, and everyone has a stance that makes sense. Next time, we get the first legitimate reappearance of a monster and some tasty drama. Let's take a peek at the 7th episode of TTAF, The Quitter. Dude! Neuragula uses his powers to turn Lori into a selfish brat, causing her to quit the Galactic Sentinels, leaving the others powerless to stop Neuragula. That is going to do it for another Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. Heroes, thank you so much as always for watching. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this episode, as well as my review of it. And as a little bonus comment, what kind of student were you in school? Were you a student like Swinton, for whom A's came really easily? Or a student like Drew, who had to struggle and fight really hard just to get that one A? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, make sure to smack that thumbs up button and let me know that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel to see all of my videos and ring that bell. Get your notifications set up so you'll be notified of whenever I post brand new videos like these Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode reviews. And if you would like to contribute to my channel in any way financially, head over to ko-fi.com/OrangeRangerVideos. There you can buy me a coffee set at $3. Any of those I receive, I greatly appreciate. Until next time, heroes, may the power portals protect you. It often feels like the producers... I knew a blooper was coming. Gordon points out to Drew that his coffee is salty, and Swinton agrees. The Sentinels arrive at the cave, and Nimbar teach the ignorant as much as you can. Society is culpable in not providing a free education for all, and teach the ignorant as much as you can. Society is culpable in not providing free education for all, and must answer for the night which it produces. If the soul teach the ignorant as much as you can. Society is culpable for not providing a free education for all, and must answer for the darkness